There you go. Tonight we have Adam Kletchko. I said that correctly.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I can't remember.
David Parker.
Well, that should be easy.
Yeah, Spider-Man's my cousin, but
Okay, we won't go there.
Yeah.
They're partners.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, part of Movember, Saskatchewan. Yes.
They're partners in Movember. And the reason why we have these fellows here is because they do recognize prostate cancer as one of the key illnesses that men go through. And I'll let you explain that part. But also, I want you to be aware that Movember is in November and prostate cancer awareness is in September. Okay, that is the biggie for us for prostate cancer, and October is breast cancer. So be well aware. Okay, sir, I'm going to leave it up to Adam to do our land.
Okay, I will share my screen to get started here. Share sound is selected. That's great. And we're up and running.
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. So I'm just gonna make sure I have my cursor here. So just really quickly, again, yeah. So Adam Kletchko with Movember, Saskatchewan. What does that mean? It just means that I'm a passionate mustache grower, mustache farmer. I've been growing a mustache for Movember to raise funds for Movember Men's Health since 2010. So this is my 14th campaign. And somewhere along the way, Movember Canada recognized the efforts and kind of asked if I could be a bit of an ambassador here in Regina or Saskatchewan and kind of speak on their behalf, which I'm very proud and privileged to do for them. So that's been for about 11 years now speaking. I remember in, I guess it would have been 2019 that I was here in this room. And I think it was the first time we guys moved to this location. And I thought, that's great. I love doing that. And then we went virtual. Virtual is also good, but I like being this hybrid. So I'm glad to be here today. And I'll let Dave introduce himself as well.
Yeah, so I've been a Mo bro, I guess, growing since 2009. And so that's 15 years. And what's kind of interesting is I had heard about Adam, and I don't know if he had heard about me, but somewhere around 2014, 15 maybe, our worlds kind of connected, and we said, hey, you're doing this from where you too? Oh, and it was like, okay, well, let's get together, let's join forces, and there are a couple more people in the city, and so we formed, or I guess I kind of came in to this Movember Saskatchewan committee, and we meet every year, and again, those moments that we have at the meetings are so important to then to see what can we do? What can we actually really do for our community and be there to support the Movember message? So that's a little bit about me. And here's our land acknowledgement. And I'm going to read it out and we'll add a little bit more flavor to it. But Movember acknowledges that we are gathered on treaty land, okay, referred to as Treaty 4 territory, and that the city of Regina and all the people here are beneficiaries of this treaty. So Treaty 4 encompasses the lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and also homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'm going to pause there and just say what I really appreciate with the Movember side of it is, and you'll learn this a little bit in the history, is because it began in Australia. They have had this reconciliation effect a lot longer than Canada has, and that's the truth. Nothing to hide there, but they're going one step beyond in Movember Australia, and I guess encouraging partners around the world to take that land acknowledgement one step further and commit to it and turn it into action. And so there is some Indigenous Movember programming that has happened in Churchill, Manitoba, which have done wonders for the community. And I challenge you to go and take a look at that on YouTube whenever you have a chance. But the second statement here is Movember respects and acknowledges harms and mistakes of the past. And we are committed to move forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So I took this and I thought, David, what does that mean for you? Well, I did live in a First Nations community, northern Saskatchewan. And for me, it's the idea of, those communities are very much isolated and are far from healthcare in some cases. So how can we spread the awareness to get checked sooner? You know, consult your medical team, for example, and stay up to date with the newest information. So that's a little bit about the land acknowledgement, but it's, again, what can we do to take it one step further? And I think that's important to reflect on, and maybe we don't have all the answers right now, but Movember for sure is committed to it, and I know we are as a community. So. All right, so the agenda for tonight is our story for sure in terms of Movember as a program. We are going to talk about prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and mental health and suicide prevention. So there's the mental and the physical health, which are important, and that's what we'll cover tonight and see what we can do. Now, if we go back to the beginnings of Movember, I know there's some statistics there, but I kind of want to share the fun story, because you may have heard that growing a mustache is fun and it was kind of a fun thing to do. Is a couple buddies actually that just decided they're going to grow a mustache, and because they had seen, you know, the breast cancer programming being successful, and they thought, well, what can we do for our community? What can we do for men? There's nothing really for men per se. So they grew the mustache, launched the challenge to 30 friends, and then they grew their mustache, and it just from year one, you know, it was a couple $100, and then by year 3, they actually raised $1 million plus in terms of funding. So talking about impact, the scale of that is huge, and then it just caught on. So now it's in 20 different countries around the world that actively participate, and I don't know where Canada sits in that scheme, but
we're usually battling for first or second place, I think, in funding. It's usually the UK is actually, I think Canada and UK are some of the top supporters for Movember. Yeah, we embrace the mustache a little bit more, for sure.
It's cold here.
Yes. And so they, again, that reference to breast cancer, is thinking, well, you know, the marketing and the promo and the awareness was just spot on. And I remember walking into Canadian Tire as an example, and there's like full shelves of everything in pink. It's like, wow. But then obviously there's no Movember equivalent of that. There isn't a blue shelf, right? And some things are popping up or cropping up. But that's what they went through earlier on. They say, well, how can we balance that equation in a sense and bring some attention to prostate cancer? And it started off with just prostate cancer in the beginning. We'll talk about that evolution a little bit. Adam?
Sure. So one of the slogans for Movember is changing the face of men's health. And obviously when we read that, it makes sense on multiple levels. So obviously we're changing our faces by choosing to grow a mustache for Movember. Like Dave was saying, with other campaigns, you have ribbons, you have ties, etc. This is our hairy ribbon, as we like to call it. So we don't wear ribbons, we just grow these mustaches. And so, yeah, we change the face of men's health. So we're trying to describe what our outcome is as a charity. So we're trying to get men engaged in their health, learning about their health, the risks they face, taking early action, and actually going to the doctor is probably one of the biggest things out there as well. So on top of this, we're starting conversations just like we're having in this room today. When we walk down the street, we want to try to have someone say, you know, even just before I came here, I just ran into someone who said, hey, you've got a nice like mustache coming in. That opens the conversation. I was growing a mustache, a pretty thick one for the last 6 months, for the purpose of when I shave it off, I need people to ask me, where'd your mustache go? Opens up conversation as well. So the next slide we're going to do, every year, Movember, I mean, obviously they have a kind of advertising campaigns that they do, and Movember likes to try to mix the serious with the fun. And so this is this year's commercial campaign, which goes with the message, the Mo is calling. So they're trying to say that all walks of life, men, women from everywhere, are being drawn towards the mustache or the calling of the Mo.
Hi, is this the 247? Mo.
The Mo is calling. Raise funds, save lives. Sign up at Movember.com.
So yeah, that's a little bit of their balance for this year's. So big question, why are we here? Short answer, men's health is in crisis. So some quick stats, because we're going to go over these in more detail later, but starting with, let's say, mental health and suicide prevention, which is the newest kind of key area for Movember. And in 2003, they started prostate cancer, eventually jumped and added testicular cancer. Now we realize, like Dave was saying, the mix of the physical health and mental health being together, so mental health and suicide prevention. So quick stats here in Canada, which are quite startling stats. 3 out of 4 suicides are by men in Canada. Globally, men die 4 years earlier than women. And also you'll hear Movember focus on a number 60. And the reason why is that's how many men we lose to suicide each hour globally. So that's 1 man every minute somewhere in the world. One factor is that too many men tough it out or struggle alone. And we want to encourage, obviously, more awareness around men's mental health and suicide prevention as well. When we look at prostate cancer, the current stat here in Canada, correct me if I'm wrong, is 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed in their
With
lifetime.
prostate cancer,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got a new stat for you. I'll see how accurate.
Okay.
you are.
Yeah. Well, I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I don't trust this. I trust you.
Thank you.
So now so Movember's putting a lot of money. We're going to talk about that too, about a really exciting announcement they had back in September towards funding with prostate cancer research here in Canada. But our goals are better diagnostic tools, a better understanding of which treatments and care work best for different groups of men based on their specific circumstances, better information, resources, tools for men pre and post treatment. Some of the goals from Movember there. And then with testicular cancer, it's a young man's disease. But when I say young men, it's actually 15 to 40 years old. So I'm not out of the woods yet. The reason why Movember kind of wanted to tackle testicular cancer is it one of the most common forms of cancer? Well, again, it is in young men, but it wasn't something that a lot of people were looking into. So they said that's something that we can easily take under our belt. And if we can do some campaigning to, again, even just get to one man and save a life or get the conversations going, then why not? And yeah, we'll talk about testicular cancer a little bit more in the next ones as well. So if we put these into terms, when we say that men die 4 years earlier than women, what that actually means, so it's a lot of time. It's 1,460 days. That's 208 weekends. And we did the math. That's over 35,000 hours. So if you like TV shows or sports, that's like rewatching The Office 323 times or The Simpsons 105 times. I put that in there because I love watching both of those. So, but in all seriousness, if we as men are not on top of our physical or mental health, like going to the doctor, going to therapy, checking with our friends and making sure they're on the right track, we're going to miss out on time with the people who mean most to us as well. So it all starts with the cliche phrase that I'm sure you've heard, it's okay to not be okay. So Movember's trying to drive that home as well. What's not okay is not talking about what's going on in our lives and letting those feelings and emotions fester to the point where it's detrimental to our health. So we want to be talking about what's going on either physically or mentally as one of the strongest things that we can do as men as well. It takes immense courage and confidence to admit that you might need it. But that's why we're trying to change the conversation and make it more I guess, acceptable amongst groups.
So as Adam said, we're literally changing the face of men's health and trying to bring on that conversation. So let's actually start with prostate cancer. So I do have some stats again, correct?
Oh, I will
correct.
correct you.
And
I just got some stuff all hot off the presses. So I'll
Nice.
see how good you are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So as mentioned, that's why Movember sort of started prostate cancer, and since the beginning in Canada, Movember in 2007, so it's 4 years before we kind of fully adopted the program here in Canada, based on Australia. Over 1 million has been put into prostate cancer research in Canada itself, making Movember Canada the second largest funder of prostate cancer in Canada in that time period. So we're second behind the federal government. In September 2023, Movember announced an investment of $5.8 million into prostate cancer research projects across Canada.
And to give you a heads up, because prostate cancer is so commonly diagnosed, that does lead to the sharing of research from prostate cancer with other cancers that are out there. So there you go. And another cancer that's shares common ground is breast cancer. And yes, men can get breast cancer as well, but women can also get prostate cancer. I wonder why. Anyhow, it's supposed to be a laugh. There you go. And yes, with breast and prostate cancer, they are so common, and because they're so commonly diagnosed.
Yeah.
So stats are on the board there. 1 in 8 Canadian men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, and represents 20% of all new cancer cases in men.
And I noticed you have an African-American fellow up there. The newest stats that I had just received at one point in time, it was our African-American, those of African descent, was 1 in 3. That is now improved to 1 in 6. And that is according to the American Department of Defense. So I really like they're pretty accurate with their stats. And 1 of 5 men in our military or paramilitary background. And there's other factors to hold with that too.
Okay.
So in Saskatchewan, that translates in terms of incidence for prostate cancer, 720 men in 2022 were diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Yeah.
172 died in this province, prostate cancer, in 2022. So if you want to know what it means locally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's great.
Thank you,
And-
James. Thank you.
And thank you for those additions. And in our briefings, we hear of African and Caribbean descent. So those two words come up quite a bit. So thank you.
And more so African American
Mhm.
than just of African. So I don't know what the rationale is. Never know.
But you're right, you say a lot of they link the Caribbean.
Yeah,
as well,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay, so early detection is key. We know that people in this room may now know that, but not everyone does. So we always like to even within our group, I keep thinking to early detection. I've had difficult conversations with my GP to say, please, I want a PSA. Please, I need a prostate check. I said, you're too young. You're too young. Well, I have some family history. This is something I need to check on. So please, and almost had to push that envelope a little bit, and finally my GP said, okay, fine. But it is very much a difficult conversation to have at the forefront, even for younger adults in that sense. So early detection is key for sure, and there's power in that. And so we were just talking about it. When it comes to getting tested, we recommend 50 years of age. When I first got tested, I was below 40, and my GP didn't want to hear anything about it. Well, let's push that envelope, like I said.
And it is a myth that they say that more men die with prostate cancer than of prostate cancer. That is a myth. That has been proven, and that was from a conference in Europe, in Oxford, England, that we attended via Zoom.
So I mentioned I lost an uncle to prostate cancer, and there were quite a few years, and that's part and parcel why I got involved first in 2009. But we're going to watch a video here, which does show that sort of intergenerational dependency in the family, and it's quite a powerful story, and it's a father and son duo, and let's watch this video.
So this is a YouTube link that we're going to play, and the last one, on our end was a little laggy, but do our best.
Might be a few ads too.
It seems like a dream seems just not real, even when I'm looking back on it, because I just froze up. Your father has prostate cancer.
I was 49 years old when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. My brother had prostate cancer 5 years after I did. And only at that time did I find out that I had an uncle who had prostate cancer 5 years before me. In the Black community, we have a much higher rate of prostate cancer. And the prostate cancer we get is much more aggressive. That is a reality that I have to deal with, but it was never spoken about. And that is something that I wanted to always have that conversation with my son about.
I have never heard of prostate cancer before that, so I didn't even think anyone in my family had cancer. I always thought that was something that happened to other families.
You get 10 Black men talking about prostate cancer with their wives around. 15 minutes later, you will find all the men have moved out of the circle and all the women have moved into the circle. They want to advocate for their husbands because it's a very touchy subject within the Black community. You don't mess with a person's manhood. You don't talk about it. Black men treat prostate cancer as more of a threat to their manhood than as a disease. We all live in a world where we don't always like the answer, but it's not about liking the answer. You need to take control of your own health. I talked to my son and he looked at me, he says, "Will you be okay?" And I said, "Brian, this is the best chance I have for doing this." Okay, so why are we even thinking about it? Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's go. Let's get it done. He reminded me of me, then it gave me so much strength that it made everything else much easier.
I remember how I felt so lucky when he was able to come through it. It was scary. If he was more closed off, I wouldn't have him around. So I feel incredibly lucky that I had a father who was willing to take care of himself.
I think it is important that each and every one of us understand what our own risks are. You can make a change. Understanding your own health risk, looking after yourself.
It's not weakness, you're being vulnerable. I wouldn't put one point on it, like you have to do this one thing to be a man. You are a man. What you choose to do next will inform what type of man you are.
So there's many more videos, real stories like that on Movember. If you go to YouTube, they have their own channel and you can watch multiple of that. But just to show a little bit of kind of what they're trying to convey and share to the public as well. Some powerful messages with that as well. Moving on to the second pillar for Movember, testicular cancer, that we talked about before. So maybe for a lot of us at this table, we can't relate to it directly, but try to think about people in your life it might apply to. So maybe sons, partners, boyfriends, brothers. We just put it out to just know that if it doesn't affect us, maybe someone else. But let's jump into the numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, it is the #1 diagnosed cancer in young men aged 15 to so while it's rare, it's 1% of all male tumors. There's still 70,000 men across the world who are diagnosed each year. And one of the biggest things that Movember is looking to change is that 62% of men don't check themselves for testicular cancer. It's one of those things that can be done for like self-checks, much like breast cancer as well. Not obviously, but just, checking for abnormalities, lumps, bumps, that kind of thing. And early detection is key, much like any cancer. And if caught early, testicular cancer has a 95% chance of survival. So we really want to avoid that 5%. And that's where the education piece comes in. So we're trying to combat testicular cancer by delivering a range of health promotion campaigns focused on raising awareness. April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month. So Movember sometimes has a little bit more of a surge again back in April for some of their campaigns. So there's different programs. Again, they're all available on Movember's site. There's one called Nuts and Bolts that they put some money under as well. And some, again, very Movember style ways of going about having to help people check themselves. One fun video involves a pear in the shower. So an actual fruit, the pear, Dane tells you how to do it. I'm not going to show it to you guys.
Yeah.
For time purposes.
Not tonight. Yeah.
But I always, yeah. But I always tell people before I hit play, there's no nudity in this video. Yeah.
Damn.
I know. I don't know if much is what you want. Yeah. So we're gonna jump to the third pillar now, mental health suicide prevention. So with this one, I'll go back to that slide there. So mental health, I'm not sure how much this group talks about or has presented on it, but it's a topic that's often misunderstood, comes with a lot of stigma, as we know, and unfortunately, it's not something that we're taught a lot about growing up. I believe that is changing. I think more people are talking about it, but still, it's something that needs a lot more work and a lot more attention. So maybe we're taught about nutrition, physical health, sexual health, but mental health is the one missing here. So what does mental health actually mean? It's your mood. It's how you're feeling. Mental health could be positive. It could be negative. There could be big things and small things. Some small things, maybe you got a speeding ticket, bad for your mental health. Maybe you got a massage, great for your mental health. Maybe some bigger things though are like maybe going through a divorce, relationship breakdown, a job loss, diagnosis. So these can be incredibly difficult and can result in perhaps a depressed mood. Again, on the other hand, positive mental health, we take a 2-week vacation. Maybe that's great for our mental health as well. The point here is that all these things are relatable in life and can impact our mental health. So when it comes to the tough times, the struggles, we all have moments like this. And we all struggle. Doesn't matter who we are, where we live, what our job is, whether you're a Rider fan. I threw that in there thinking I'm not a Rider fan, but I heard that it didn't have a great season.
You better be, because we're really depending upon that.
Okay, I'll be the Rider fan next year. Okay. So our goal is to really give men the knowledge and education about mental health, how to recognize the signs of distress, some tools in our toolbox to take care of it. One of the things I love about what Movember is trying to do with mental health is a lot of campaigns talking about being aware of mental health. If you look at the Bell Let's Talk campaign, they talk about at the time tweeting something or hashtag with it. But I feel like what the missing side of it is educating people on how to have the crucial conversations with others that they feel might be struggling with their mental health. And that's where Movember is trying to turn the page on that and help out with that as well. So I'll let Dave go next with some numbers here.
And we shared some of those numbers already. So thinking back to men. On with the physical health, and we're looking now 3 out of 4 suicides are men. And one of the worst stats, according in association to that, is usually there's 20 attempts leading up. And that in itself is enough to make you think like, ooh, okay, that's a lot of, the system can get bogged down with even just the 20 attempts, right? So there is a lot of stigma around it, and Movember decides, well, let's talk about it. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be transparent, and let's bring this to the forefront and actually talk about it. And then, of course, suicide is the second leading cause of death in Canada, men's 15 to 44. So bringing this sort of topic, I guess, out of the shadows, and what can we do in terms of action? Let's talk about it. Movember recently released a great new campaign about therapy. Therapy isn't because you're sick and it's the worst part of being a human. It's actually therapy is there to help talk, have the conversation. And then there's some true accounts on on what that programming looks like. So we definitely encourage about talking about it, but so we get into examining the problem and the stat again on the screen. Canadian men feel society expects them to be emotionally strong and to show no weakness. Then the other, over a third of Canadian men say they will not talk to others about how they feel to avoid feeling unmanly. We have to examine those
terms.
Those terms,
masculinity,
yeah, exactly. And like Adam said, things are changing. I know that, of course, when I'm speaking to my children, it's very different than how my dad was talking to me. And my dad came from, generations of military family, and it was a little bit more directional, right? So I'm trying to change that myself with my family. You say, well, you know what, you're having a tough time. Let's talk about it instead of, no, go to your room or whatever it might be, right? So the nice thing is those conversations are happening now. We are turning the tide, but there's still a lot more work to do.
It's funny that you say that, David, because half of my clinical career as a registered nurse was on mental health. Before I left there, I was a patient advocate and a patient educator. And one of the most interesting things that since joining this group and doing the presentation, I found the greatest clip that kind of shows how the whole stoic thing about a man. I used the Monty Python clip, the Black Knight.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And he's lost an arm, and he feels no pain, nothing, and it's but a scratch, and that's that whole macho thing. And yeah, I like to equate it to that, so that you need a visual. Men need a visual. Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, especially when men, we're not going to open up as easy.
No.
We're not going to admit, we might not even admit that we have, a health scare at all, because we have to be stoic and strong and the protectors, right?
Exactly. And that's why we have safe environments like this, like our support group. So it is a safe environment for, and I'm also a sexual health counselor. So I'm very, very, very open when I start doing some presentations regards to that. So okay, whatever, for sure.
And one of the things with the therapy sort of programming that Movember was talking about is identifying triggers. And like Adam said, it's emotions, it's moods. Well, get to know yourself, right? And understand, if it's a speeding ticket and you're mad at the world, well, understand that, okay, next time I might just slow down, right? And identifying what caused that concern and that rage and anger, because we're human, we all have emotions for sure, but it's identifying those triggers is super important. And so I'll share a personal story if you don't mind. In 2016, I was playing soccer and I got a concussion because someone body checked me. They brought hockey to soccer, which two different sports, but and he got a 2-game suspension, and I went for CT scans and was unable to work for, let's say, probably about 4 months. I was on leave, bedridden, sleeping 23 hours a day. I did have dark thoughts. I did. I might have been ignorant. The other part of that is I couldn't drink coffee for 2 years, no alcohol for 2 years, because I realized it would trigger me. And my emotional responses were brisk and were not nice. When you have 2 young kids at home, that isn't cool. So part of this mental health piece is now, okay, take a deep dive into that and really understand what those triggers are. Talk about it. So my wife and I would say, became best friends. I know it's not the greatest circumstance, but she was there to support me, my parents. And the interesting thing out of all that is, in those 6 months where I was staying home and not feeling great, I had 2 friends visit me. Only 2 friends. No coworkers, just 2 friends.
What profession are you in?
I'm in marketing. I'm in a corporate job, with thousands of people in a building.
Yeah.
And so that really, I thought, okay, and they were men, and everyone else, I don't know what their thoughts were. They didn't want to approach the subject, didn't want to talk about it. But I'm here to tell you, mental health is very, very important to talk about. So in this day and age, yes, I've recovered. It's been a while. I feel good. But if I don't get a good night's sleep, my triggers come. And the importance there is, okay, I need to just take a step back and then maybe go for a walk and then definitely have a good night's sleep. So again, through this Movember programming, that's where I've been able to open up and really talk about mental health in itself. And we're going to watch the video.
Yeah, this video here is part of their campaign, Be a Man of More Words. Again, it's a very Movember approach to the subject of reaching out to someone who might be a little bit more closed off.
We all know a man of few words, a man who wasn't exactly gifted the gab. With him, it's always a one-sided conversation. He was once told that a picture says 1,000 words, which is why he never posts them. Invite him for a quiet one, and you'll get exactly that.
How's work?
And when asked to say a few words...
Mark Davis. Well done, Mark. Come up here. Come on.
Thanks. He takes it literally.
Short and sweet, Mark.
He's the type of man who'd sing an instrumental at karaoke.
Have you been to...
He's often described as a
Francis?
good listener.
Really nice.
I've lost that many songs, honestly. And people go, there you go. So they go up there.
But he's never been famous for his goodbyes. But even a man of the fewest words knows that when times are tough, a few words just aren't enough. So if you're feeling like things just aren't quite right, be a man of more words. Tell someone, because talking saves lives.
Okay, so next we'll go into inspiring the signs. So this goes into the tools of Movember, trying to help us have better conversations with others as well. So since we don't always recognize the signs or symptoms of depression, it's important that we upskill ourselves to notice the signs that someone might be going through a tough time. And we should be especially looking at these types of signs during significant events. So these could be something like becoming a father, loss of a job, relationship breakdown, physical health challenges, or retirement are all good examples of some of those as well. So what Movember likes to talk about is, can you spot a bro that's feeling low? Again, with the Mo bro mentality. So often it's when someone isn't being themselves that we start to notice a change. This may be a good time to reach out, even if it's just to catch up. And we'll talk a little bit more about strategies or tools Movember has to help drive those conversations. But the next video we have here is another that highlights the importance of being a man of more words. And this one does deal with some stories around suicide, just as a heads up for you.
Dear Mum and Dad, this isn't your fault.
Well, I've been doing it really tough for a good while now.
I'm sorry I can't be the father you want me to be.
You'll find another best friend.
It was no one's fault. No one caused it.
Please move on. That's all I want.
I love you. And I'm done.
I wrote this 6 years ago.
I wrote this 3 years ago.
I wrote this 4 years ago.
That was 15 years ago.
You mightn't have time now.
It's actually better for that way, because
talking.
So you want to help, but what do you say? I think we've all been there. Maybe some of you are there right now. You want to reach out to someone, you know you want to support them, you want to say something, but you don't know what to say, so you say nothing. Maybe that's some of the relation you're talking about with people coming to visit. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in what if we say the wrong thing? What do I need to fix them? Is that my responsibility? Do I feel like I should have a solution or give some magical words of wisdom? And also, I'm not a mental health expert, so what good can I do? But the truth is here that you don't need to provide the answer. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to be the expert. It's really just about listening and being there for support. So Movember likes to educate people around this acronym ALEC, A-L-E-C. And it's pretty easy to remember. So we're just going to go through it a little bit with you guys. So the first one to think about when we're having these tough conversations is ask. So simple, start, ask how they're doing. We always say, share what you notice and ask them how you're doing. Now, obviously with that, it's possible that you ask them how they're doing, but someone's saying more closed off, they don't want to talk. So Movember is asking people to sometimes model honest conversation. So if you notice someone might be struggling, maybe you start with a little bit of what's going on in your life to make them feel more comfortable opening up to you as well. The next one's listening. Might be the hardest part of the entire thing. I know it is for me. That's what I've been told a lot of people. Because we as humans, we love to be problem solvers. So to truly listen and make the other person feel heard can actually take a bit of practice. So when we have the urge to jump in and give advice, we encourage to use clarifying questions. These can be, what do you mean by, can you tell me a bit more about, can you give me an example of, or what was that like for you? These questions all encourage the other person to open up more. Next one, E, encourage action. So encourage them to focus on the simple things they can do to improve how they feel. Encourage men to take action when needed. This goes for taking care of their physical and mental health. Encourage to talk more. So perhaps you're the first person they've opened up to, and maybe the first person they can share that's outside of their partner or their best friend as well. So help doesn't have to be a dirty word. We all need a hand from time to time, and in these tough times, it's important to be there for each other. But remember, as much as you want to lift someone up, don't put all this on your shoulders. Know when it's time to call out that wider network, psychologists, therapists, family doctors, etc. And then the last one is check in. So it's very important that once you've gotten to that level, you want to set aside some time to follow up and circle back on that conversation as well. So checking in is a key part of this process. It sends the message to the person that you do care and you're genuinely in their corner. In difficult times, reaching out can give someone hope and a sense of how powerful their support network is as well. So that's simply ALEC. Again, that's what we encourage people to have conversations. If you notice in this top corner here on the slide, it says Movember Conversations. And David's going to go a little bit more into that. That's one of the tools or programs that Movember's helped fund as well around this.
Yeah, so again, Movember is about taking that action, and what they were able to do is connect with health experts and build this programming, which is a free online tool. And as part of the Movember message, go check it out. Really, it's simple. It sort of gamifies the tough conversation, and it does say, there are examples of your friend says this. What would you say? It might give you a couple options. Well, maybe don't go with that theme. Go with this other one. So it's a nice free online tool and goes with that ALEC framework. And it is backed by experts. And it's not just anyone who made it, it's actually backed by professionals and provides practical advice. I have used Movember Conversations in my life as well. Great tool, great tool. All right, and yeah, what are the main takeaways of mental health? So if you think someone's not doing well, reach out, do something, take a walk, find a catch up, be there, listen, share what's happening with with you too, right? And part of it is a conversation. You have to share something that's happening in your life as well, but don't overwhelm them because they might be going through a really tough time and might not understand their situation. You're not there to offer a solution. You're there to listen and take in whatever they're communicating and ask some very sometimes tough questions, but good questions to get them thinking. And then let's watch a quick video here of the therapy I've been promoting already.
Therapy! Here's the truth about therapy. It's fucking excellent. But for all the people out there that could do with a bit of that sweet therapy nectar, very few will actually get it. Why? There are plenty of reasons. They don't trust it. They've had a bad experience with it. They're worried about what others would think, or they just don't have time. Whatever the reasons, it ultimately comes down to the same thing: understanding it. So, if you're thinking about therapy or you know someone who might benefit from therapy, then this is for you, because this is an all-you-can-eat therapy buffet, a 5-part series that will demystify the process and empower you to seek help if you need it.
Yeah. So there's five episodes. They're all great. They're all cheeky like that as well, but they do offer some real life examples of what that therapy is like. And you know, for me, it opened my eyes to hearing the men say, "Yeah, it was awesome." Sometimes there's some explicit words in there as well, but it's really well done. Really, really well done. I encourage you to check it out.
And we do want, before we move on to that too, just speaking of programming, if you do go on the Movember site, they also have this program called Family Man. And it might just so happen that David in the room here was the face of the campaign, or a video for it anyways. And it's a very great piece as well. I didn't want to put it in showboat in front of everyone.
What?
Yeah.
You go at the door, boys. You
Yeah.
go at the door.
We can watch it later if you
Yeah.
no, or go find it on YouTube.
But yeah, I don't know. You can speak to Family Man just quickly.
Family Man is very much how to deal with family, and it covers a bunch of different scenarios, and it's really from a man's perspective, you know. And one of the examples, which starts off right off the bat, and it's gamification as well, so it gets you walking through and kind of testing what would you do in this scenario. And one of the scenes is a dad walking in the living room, and he steps on a Lego, and he's like, you know, there's the explicit part of it, and then it says, how would you react? You know, pick up your goddamn toys, or you know what? Okay, we had fun playing Lego last night. This was just kind of left behind, and I haven't told them to pick it up. Or hey, I'll just pick it up and we'll just carry on with our day. So there's these different scenarios that you choose, and again, the best part of it is it's research backed. So they've talked to the clinical psychologists, the researchers, the PhD students working on that family interaction. And so Family Man, again, it's a free tool that I share widely. And the real life implication for me is it's made me a better father. I have moments where, especially with the concussion symptoms, you know, I could be like, I could really react, not in the great way, but then it's a moment for me to pause, and it has taught me to pause, reflect, and say, okay, whatever the next words are out of my mouth, what is the impact on my kids, right? And what am I trying to teach them and show them? So, and it also works, you know, in the office and in the community as well, but it's that moment of reflection, just think, okay, you know, that Lego piece, we'll talk about it, we'll get those good habits coming. There's no reason for me to yell, because I probably bought that Lego piece, right? So yeah, great programming. Again, a free online tool, research-based. Go check it.
Okay, so where the money goes. So yeah, Movember is a charity. We raise funds as much as we raise awareness. And so 80% of the funds raised went directly into men's health projects in 2021. Like all registered charities, you can go on Movember.com and see where the money goes specifically and see their financial reports as well. Since 2003, so that's its inception, this is the 20th campaign since its inception, 2003 in Australia, 17th in Canada. Funded over 1,300 projects across the world, and that includes just about, or 300-ish programs here in Canada as well, some of the ones we just talked about. So when it comes to prostate and testicular cancer, we're looking for a cure, yes, but we're also fiercely focused on improving quality of life for those living with or beyond prostate or testicular cancer. So that goes into biomedical research, care, education, health services, clinical quality, mental health and suicide prevention. This issue is incredibly complex, but improving overall mental health and helping men establish better social connections can reduce the risk of suicide. So they're prioritizing campaigns like we just talked about in fathers. We touched on a little bit earlier in Indigenous men and boys, vets and first responders. We now know maybe why that's in there too. Young men and men going through tough times in their life. So everything we've touched on this as well. Some more information about the biomedical research piece. So again, so Movember has invested since 2008, $107 million in prostate cancer initiatives. So 197 prostate cancer grants, 33 clinical studies worth over 18 million, almost 4,000 publications in peer-reviewed journals, and over 1,300 citations. So putting in a lot of work behind the scenes into, in this case, prostate cancer specifically. This was the big news piece that came out in September this year. So investing 5.8 million into prostate cancer research here in Canada. And those are four main areas of research, which include 1.5 million in preventing disease progression in prostate cancer, our program around that. Another 750K into personalized active surveillance programs, 2.1 million into equity grant initiatives, and then 1.5 million into patient-reported outcome measures, programs, or prompts. So again, more information on that available on Movember.com. For anyone that's interested to know more. And now into what people know about the campaign, or I hope people know about the campaign, but how to get involved.
Yeah, grow a mustache. And that's what we're, well, I'm trying to do, and I have for a while, but it's really, it is that visible billboard that, you know, everyone can see, and we get to talk about it. Move. So we haven't talked too much about the move part of it, but there is this other wing to the Movember movement, is realizing that when men move, they're healthier. Mm-hmm. They have healthier thoughts and have healthier bodies. So there's that correlation and that push to just move. Well, you could be walking around the block, you could be going up a flight of stairs, it could be a full, you know, basketball game, whatever it might be, just move. So the Movember app does have a tracker of how many funds you're raising, but it also has a tracker to see how many moves are you doing, how many kilometers have you walked, have you gone swimming, biking, whatever it might be. There's that tracker there just to, as an encouragement, and to set those goals to move and live a healthier life. And then host a moment this Movember, or I guess an event. Yeah, it could be a meeting. Anything that gathers people and where you can share the insight and share that awareness, and then mow your own way. Yeah, grueling. I like the grueling test of physical endurance. No, thank you. That might be for other people, but I'll move a little bit, or maybe kick a bad habit. Just do something different. Again, pausing, taking that moment of reflection, and then turning that into action. What are you actually going to do? One thing to talk about it, but let's action it.
And then speaking to this as well, like obviously when people, even with men, it's hard to do. I have a workplace of 900 blue collar men, and all middle-aged, and a lot of them have mustaches. And when I asked them to grow a mustache for Movember or shave off, it was like, don't talk to me, man. Like it was the hardest thing in the world. I was like, how can you not want to do this? But different passions, I guess. But anyways, yeah, so Movember recognizes that it's hard enough to sometimes to get people to grow a mustache or be part of Movember, but we want to encourage others, men and women, to participate. So how would, so, you know, women are always like, oh, maybe I won't shave my legs for the month. I don't know if anyone's ever done that. I hear it every year. I don't know if
Women do, we do get mustaches.
Yes. But yeah, so when we talk about move, post, mow your own way, that is Movember's way of trying to get everyone involved, making sure it's open to everyone. And honestly, through my years of growing a mustache, I can say some of the strongest supporters I've run into have been women. You know, we talk in that video about how the social circle of men talking to when they go out and all the partners and wives come in. There's a lot of passionate women out there as well, and we want to make sure that they have a way to show their support. in whatever that looks like.
Then there we go. Take action. Sign up. Takes 5 minutes. You got a good app, a daily tracker. I need to take my picture, by the way.
I've already ruined that, yeah.
Oh, really?
I forgot
Oh.
for you now.
So every day you take your picture to see the progression of the mow, and then you can share it with your friends and family. And my kids love it. My wife hates it, but hey, that's another discussion. But get moving, spread the word, and then the last thing, donate. And so even we understand there's donation fatigue. There is a lot of talk about the rise of the cost of inflation, cost of living. So the way I approach the donate is you don't have to donate. At least have a conversation. And I like to pack my communications and emails to colleagues and friends with, here are resources that you can check out. There are free online tools that you can check out. And if you want to donate, sure, but I don't make it the main point of the message. Because I feel like when people hear, oh, please donate here, conversation's over. You don't get a chance to talk about suicide prevention or any physical health at all. So I don't play too much on that as a sort of tactic, if you will. So for me, it's let's look at the higher picture and let's just have a conversation. Once you've had a conversation, then what is the action? Right? How can you improve your life and the life of men around men and women? Actually, right?
Boom. No. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Almost. Almost.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you guys started off with prostate cancer.
So in Australia in 2003, strictly prostate cancer. And at the time, no one was doing anything big for it, really. And then it wasn't until I think around the same few years into when it came into Canada. In 2007, it came to a few more countries. They introduced the testicular cancer. And then I don't remember the push when we introduced the mental health suicide prevention, but I believe that was a 2014, 15, I think mid-teens for sure. And now those are really the three focus. And